There is something that I see Spanish learners do all the time, and it adds years to their language learning process. We have got to talk about it right now so that you can stop doing this immediately if you're guilty of it, so that you can progress towards your Spanish language goals so much faster. Comencemos, amigos. Hola mis queridos líderes del lenguaje, bienvenidos a otro video. Yo me llamo Erica Ray. En este canal te comparto las estrategias que me ayudaron a aprender español desde cero y que han ayudado a miles de mis estudiantes a acelerar su propio camino hacia la fluidez. Si eso te parece interesante, pues suscríbete para no perderte nada. Guys, recently I was speaking to a Spanish learner who had come to me for advice. She'd come to me for help, and we started the conversation off in English. I was simply asking her about her history with the language, what she was doing currently, and what her goals were. And she shared several things, among them that she felt completely plateaued. She'd been learning for a long time, but she couldn't converse at the level that she wanted. She had a lot of problems with accuracy, and she just overall didn't feel at all confident with her communication. So her plan up to that point had been to purchase a beginner's level Spanish course and work through the beginning, starting from lesson 1 and just work her way through sequentially. Because, as she mentioned, she had a lot of gaps. She kept talking about the gaps that she had in her language. So after that, we proceeded to the language evaluation. So we're going to have a conversation in Spanish just to see kind of where she was starting from. I expected her to be able to have a basic conversation in Spanish according to what she had told me, but maybe that it wouldn't last very long or that we couldn't talk about very many things. 40 minutes later, we were still in our Spanish conversation. She had continued to speak almost entirely in Spanish. Yes, I had helped her with some vocabulary. Yes, I had helped her with some sentence structure, but I was able to understand all of the points that she was trying to get across. She was able to understand me perfectly well. And we had talked about so many things, like really random things. She's a really, really fun person to talk to. We had talked about all kinds of subjects. And after that, I said, let's call her Rachel. I said, Rachel, what was that you were telling me about you were going to go get a beginner's course and start from lesson 1? And she just kind of laughed and said, well, I didn't know what else to do because I have gaps. Yes, there were gaps in her accuracy. Yes, she needed help with the grammar, but that was just not the way to go about doing it. And continuously doing that over the years is the reason why she was still plateaued and her level wasn't at the point where she really wanted it to be. Fortunately, she went in a different direction and she decided to work with my team and I so that we could meet her where she was at and help her progress to the next level, filling in those gaps that she actually needed to fill. I share this story with you because I hear a version of this story all the time from Spanish learners who are not at the complete beginner level. So why does this happen? Why do we as humans feel this need to go back to the beginning and fill in the gaps, as we say? Because once we can understand that, then we can find a better solution. So we have been conditioned to think of language learning as this very linear path, as if it were a school subject. We're just kind of progressing step by step. And well, it is taught in school, so that's natural why it would feel that way. And, along the way, we have these levels, right? We're expected to be able to do something different at each level. And then here we have this ultimate goal of fluency. All right, we've made it. We've reached our goal. Okay, well, what's the problem here? Well, there are a few problems. Let's say that we could really learn a language like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. We would need to assume that at every step of the way, all of our skills were developing at the same rate. So our listening, speaking, writing, reading, in order to truly be able to say that we've reached the next level. And when we're exposing ourselves to the language with our listening and reading, we would need to make sure that we're only listening to level appropriate material. Because, what if we're at level 3 and our podcast is including some level 6 words? That could not be allowed if we were truly expecting to progress in this linear way. Also, if we're no longer a complete beginner, then we shouldn't be making beginner level mistakes because we should not forget anything. Once we've gotten to another level, we shouldn't forget anything because that could take us back a level. So, once we're here, we shouldn't be making any mistakes like gender noun agreement mistakes or ser versus está, because we learned those in the beginning, right? We should also know how to conjugate all of the present tense verbs, even the irregular ones, because we started out learning about present tense conjugation. On the flip side, if we are at the beginning level and we want to learn how to say something like, I want you to speak more slowly, or don't do that. We cannot learn those. No, you cannot learn those sentences at the beginning level, because you're going to need to learn the subjunctive mood, the imperative mood, to be able to say sentences like that. Does that sound logical to you? Does that sound like the way that language learning actually works? It doesn't, does it? Because unlike some other school subjects, language is everything. Language is all around us. It's the way that we communicate everything. And in order to truly learn a language well and not just progress with our grammar knowledge or progress in our vocabulary list, right? Now we know more words. It's going to require more than this very sequential way of viewing language progress. Otherwise, we get stuck in a loop. If we start learning things here, we feel like I'm progressing, I'm learning more grammar, I'm learning vocabulary. Oh, I'm trying to speak and I'm forgetting some of that. I'm forgetting. Okay, obviously I need to review the rules. Okay, I've reviewed them. I know them really well. I got all my flashcards. In the conversation again. Oh, I've forgotten some. Let me just go review that again. And it's this continuous, never-ending loop. Has anything like this ever happened to you? If so, comment endless loop in the comments below. You see, this happens when we are very focused only on our grammar and our vocabulary, but we're not spending enough time inputting the language with listening and reading, maybe because we feel like it's too hard. We're also not spending enough time practicing the language with our speaking and our writing, and therefore everything that we learn here, or a good chunk of it, we forget. And then we feel like we need to go back to the beginning. When in reality, if we would just make our study plan more balanced, if we would incorporate all of the elements, one, we would forget less because we're using it, and two, we would more easily be able to see our actual gaps and pinpoint those rather than trying to learn everything that we've already learned from the very beginning. And yet going back to the beginning makes us feel safe, it makes us feel secure, it makes us feel confident. It gives our ego a boost when we go back to the beginning and I know that, I've seen this before. But if we're never challenging ourselves, we cannot get to the next level. In order to prevent this endless loop, your routine must be balanced. You have to be including the listening and reading, the writing and the speaking. That's going to help you hold on to that new grammar and vocabulary that you're learning so that you don't feel this constant need to go back to the beginning. I actually have a free cheat sheet for you called Nail Your Spanish Study Plan that's going to help you make sure that your routine is balanced, and if not, bring it in to balance so that everything is working in harmony. You can find that at ericareelanguage.com/study plan. It's very quick to go through, but will make an incredible difference in your Spanish if you actually make the tweaks that you find that you need to make. But then how do we progress? What should our progression look like? It should look something like this. We start from the beginning and we learn, we use what we learn, but we forget some of it. We kind of circle back for some review, and then we try again. And we do better this time. So we're progressing forward, but we didn't do it perfectly. We have to kind of review. Maybe we got some corrections. We didn't use all of them. We're going to try again, get some corrections, learn more vocabulary, use it so it's sticking, but not all of it because we forget. And we keep spiraling forward. Okay? That's what progress looks like. Fortunately, we're not going to remember 100% of what we learn. So we can't go from 1 to 2 and be done with 1. We can't go from 2 to 3 and be done with 1 and 2. Even at 6, we're going to keep learning. We're going to keep learning more colloquial expressions. We're going to refine our language. We're going to find our voice in Spanish, right? We're going to have more options now. We're going to be working with synonyms so that our speech is not only more accurate, but more of an expression of how we want to express the thought. We're always learning, and we're never going to remember 100% of everything. We're going to learn new words that we forget. We're going to want to learn a new topic with a whole new set of vocabulary words, even if we're here, and we'll remember some of them, but we're still progressing. Even when we go back a little bit, we're still progressing. So you can see there's nothing wrong with review. There's nothing wrong with forgetting, but we never, under any circumstance, go all the way back to the beginning. It's just not necessary, and it's just going to impede your progress and prevent you from moving forward. Each of those spirals is something different. It could be a goal that we had. Maybe our spiral here was being able to introduce ourselves, just in present tense, a really simple self-introduction. But by the time we're here, maybe we revisit that goal, but now we can talk about not only, who we are, what our name is, where we live, but where we lived before, what we used to do when we lived in California, why we moved to Florida, what we do now for work, right? Adding in details is a spiral forward. Improving your grammar, not because you've memorized more rules or because you really have that rule memorized, but because you are using it with greater and greater accuracy because you're practicing all the time and receiving corrections and recycling that back into your learning. That is a spiral forward. So don't ever feel like you need to master something before you move on to the next thing, because the fact is you will never master it, especially if you do not use it. So the key here is for your routine to be balanced. It has to include the listening, reading, so you're constantly inputting, and the writing, speaking, so that you're constantly producing as well. Now I go into this in much greater detail so that you can clearly see what you're missing or what you may be doing too much of. In my free cheat sheet that I've created for you, you can find that at ericaraylanguage.com/study plan. It's going to help you audit your study plan so that you see where you need to make changes. And the other key is consistency. If you are constantly learning, even if it's just a little bit, there may be seasons in your life where you have to really kick it back a notch. But if you're constantly in contact with the language, then that's going to help you reduce that feeling of needing to go back to the beginning. Because even a perceived plateau, first of all, isn't always a plateau, and second, is a lot better than 10 steps backward. Remember to grab that cheat sheet at ericaraylanguage.com/study plan so that you can make sure that your study plan is going to allow you to spiral forward. And if you'd like more examples of what those spirals could look like, you're gonna wanna know about goal setting, so you can check out this video next. That's all for today, guys. I'll see you next time. Hasta la próxima.